the symptoms, flashing light, blind spots, etc., almost come on you. Well, it was the same with me with depression. And that, if I talked about depression, it was almost as though I could feel the symptoms reemerge, which that was something that I didn't ever want to experience again. If I had to describe to you what my depression felt like, I would say that during that season, my life was colorless. I had lost my purpose. I had to wind myself every day just to get out of bed. I had no joy. And at times, physical speaking, I felt like I was drowning, to the point where I would actually lift my head and grasp for air for no apparent reason. I have a question. Have you guys ever been stressed when you're in a situation or you're in it, or it's constantly obsessive in your mind, and all you find yourself going throughout the day? That's what she's talking about. That's exactly what she's talking about. For many years, I didn't connect that my strange physical grasping for air was connected to depression. I didn't either. I used to do that a lot. But as our body speaks to us, mine was physically manifesting the feelings of drowning. My battle with depression went on for years, and in hindsight, I can now recognize that healing from depression was such a struggle for me because I thought depression was normal. You see, I grew up with a father who suffered from mild depression. Therefore, being in a depressed environment was my definition of normal. This condition is called normalizing, which means that the unhealthy emotion of depression became my base for normal. I mention this because healing requires us to become aware of our base environments, as the environments we were raised in sets our base and defines our quote-unquote normal. I have a question for you. Why is it important to be aware of our normalizations? The answer, because unless we are shown differently, we will always gravitate and recreate what we think is normal. So we do a cycle in our life. The environment, here's a reclaiming me principle. The environment we were raised defines our normal. The environment we were raised defines our normal. To be honest, as a child and young woman, I cannot recall feeling the emotions of joy. Don't get me wrong, I did have moments of laughter and times of happiness, but it was not until I was around 31 when for the first time I experienced the feeling of authentic joy, which you will soon learn is different from laughter and happiness. This is such an important lesson in self-empowerment because living in joy is one of the foundation of our path to self-love. In creating this class, I had two primary goals. My first goal was to make the topic of depression less isolating, as when I was in battle with depression, people were not openly talking about depression, which subsequently left me feeling isolated and alone. The second goal of this class was to create and clear an achievable path of healing. This was so important to me because for years, I was never taught how to fight back against the depression. The end result left me suffering under depression, a heavy arm for way too long. Depression has been described as many things over the years, but one of the best descriptions I've heard came from the poet Arthur Rimbaud, who described depression a season in hell. I believe this is a perfect description for depression because, number one, depression is hell, and number two, because its definition refers to depression as a season, meaning if depression enters your life, it should only be there for a season. It should never be a lifestyle. Reclaiming me. I can have a bad day, but not a bad life. Reclaiming me is that principle. I can have a bad day, but not a bad life. My journey out of the dark side began one day when, after years of battling with depression, I asked my counselor to put me on antidepressants. She in turn said words that changed my life forever. She said, "Tracy, we can put you on medication, and in 5 to 6 weeks it will start to take effect. But you will give me a chance. We can spend 5 to 6 weeks identifying what is making you depressed. We can empower you with tools to remove or change the reference source of your pain. And then the depression, not just the symptoms of depression, will lift." Here's a disclaimer though. Let me go on the record and say that I am not against antidepressants. Medication is an excellent source of treatment for depression. Therefore, if you are on antidepressant medication, my recommendation is to stay on it. Antidepressants are not a substance you can abruptly discontinue, as doing so without consulting your medical doctor can be vitally threatening. That being said, though, for me, I knew immediately my best path to treatment was not taking medication. Something told me that the root of my darkness was connected to the situation I was in and in. Therefore, logically, I understood if I could learn to create better situations for myself, I could then learn to relocate my emotions to a more joy-filled address. And that journey to joy is what I have outlined in this class for you. As many of you know, my life work is to teach women the journey to self-love. A step in that path includes learning the valuable lesson to finding your joy. So if you are someone who has been living in chambers of depression, or if you are someone who does not know that joy has an address, then this class was written just for you. Take it in slowly, be gentle with yourself. Remember that depression is a sign that we have stepped out of self-love. And as my motto is, self-love is what, girls? Non-negotiable. This also means that finding our joy is a step back to self-love. There is much happiness and healing here for you, Dr. Tracy. Okay. Anybody have any questions or want to say something? We have time, so if anybody want to say something, you got 1 minute. So if you say it, say it quick. Anybody want to say anything? Are you okay?
Yeah, I scratched my throat.
One of the fruit things. Okay.
Yeah, you know how it just.
Yeah. All right.
I'm okay.
I want to.
took some time.
Okay, I want to make a quick review on Dr. Tracy's statement. To anyone currently on or considering medicine for depression, let me repeat, medication does treat the physical symptoms of depression. Therefore, if your doctor has you on medication, please stay on it. Antidepressants are not something you can quit cold turkey. You need to have medical supervision when discontinuing antidepressants. That being said, in addition to taking your medication, in order to be free from chambers of depression, you must also learn how to remove the things that make you depressed. And that is the goal of this class, to teach you that joy has an address. Everybody say it after me. Joy has an address.
Joy has an address.
And my joy is non-negotiable.
My joy is non-negotiable.
That's right. Let's begin our journey to joy by using our Reclaiming Me tool called education that we learned in class 2. I learned about this thing called depression. Let me begin by putting some parameters on the top of the discussion of depression by saying that depression is a huge topic. However, the goal today is to identify the address of joy. Therefore, in this class, we will be focusing only on one type of depression called situation depression. I have a question for you. Do any of you have a situation that is making you feel depressed? Okay. Thank you for being so honest. In a nutshell, that describes situational depression. Okay? The definition of situation depression in general means the situation you are in is causing you to become depressed. Don't you love it when healing is that simple? To begin our healing, there are 2 facts about depression I want to share. Number 1, if your depression feels lonely, research shows that 1 in 10 people suffer from depression. However, twice as many women suffer depression over men. I'm stupid. The question is why? The reason is that facts. Number 2, men and women get depressed over different things. For example, the number 1 thing that causes depression in women is a disruption or conflict in close relationships. Well, no wonder those of us in difficult adult relationships are depressed. When we are little girls, we dream of growing up, getting married to our Prince Charming, having I don't know where the 2.5 children together, having romantic love for a lifetime, and wow, don't forget about the perfect Christmases and holidays. Sure, we might go through some trials and tribulations together, but for the most part, our dream is to find our life mate and live happily ever after. However, when we find our storybook daydream turned into a nightmare of pain, the trauma of this situation can lead us into depression. Why? Because the number 1 cause of depression in women is a disruption in close relationships. And it's true. Okay. As your mind is the storage house of everything, I want you to close your eyes for a second. We're going to do a visualize exercise, okay? With your eyes closed, I want you to bring to your conscious awareness your close relationships, or your thought-consuming or time-consuming relationships. This being, for example, maybe your life mate, your lover, your mother, father, siblings, children, best friends, and even the people you spend hours a day with at work. Once you have them in your conscious awareness, ask yourself, how many of these relationships cause you distress? Open your eyes. Are there any ahas in the room? If yes, in just a few moments, we will teach you what to do with that information you just felt, okay? And you saw. Let's first, however, review and learn a little more. To review, women become depressed over disruption in their close relationships. Where men, on the other hand, are different. Men become depressed at the loss of an idea or an achieved related goal. I repeat, Men become depressed at the loss of an ideal or an achievement-related goal. That's why when we cry and scream at men about what is happening in the relationship, they seem so unfazed by it. They seem unfazed because they are, in a sense, unfazed. Why? Because according to how their mind thinks, an argument is not a loss. But if a man loses his job, he loses identity. Or if a man loses his family, then he runs the risk of slipping into depression. Why? Because the goal, meaning the achievement of a family man, a successful businessman, or a provider are gone. The confusion for women in this dynamic is that depression a man shows about the breakup in the relationship oftentimes comes after a woman leaves. It comes with the loss of their relationship. However, many times it comes too late because by the time a man begins to grieve over the loss, the woman has already gone through her grieving and is ready to move on. So true. So what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that when women go into mourning over their relationships, men don't. Not because they don't care, but instead because they are programmed differently. Therefore, the lesson to be learned is that we as women must take action immediately. By the way, crying is not an action. On what is causing us depression, before we run out of love for this person, which we will discover how in his teaching. Here, however, is a hint. Remember that the fence called boundaries that we learned in class 6, boundaries send males the message that they might lose you. That is why they are mandatory on our journey to self-love. How we get depressed. There's 4 environments for females. Before we learn how to heal from depression, let's first learn how we get depressed in the first place. I have mentioned several times that joy has an address. So let's learn more about where the joy address is, or better stated in contrast, where it's not. Let's start with the not. There are 4 situations or environments are known to cause female depression. Number 1. As we discussed, depression happens when we have a disruption in personal relationships. Remember, number 1, disruption in relationships. Number 2, depression happens when we live in dependent environment. So true. Okay.
Can you repeat that one?
Depression happens when we live in dependent environment. I'll explain. Okay. As we learn in Breaking Up with the Love Addiction, Class 4, culturally, we as women are trained to depend on others. Here, however, is the problem. Dependence. That's the problem. Dependence. Which is defined as non-influenced or controlled by others in a matter of opinion, action, or oneself. Again, dependence is defined as not influenced or controlled by others in a matter of opinion, action, or oneself. Okay? Dependence. Makes us lose our independence. Okay? Here's independence definition. Relying on someone or something else for aid or support, making us contingent on something. Okay? So what this means is that when we lose our independence, we lose ourselves. In other words, when we hand over ourselves, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially, it puts our power and our joy in the hands of them, the other people, even though they don't care. Okay. Then this causes us to become dependent on their approval. We wait for the phone call, we wait for a word from them, we wait to see an email come in, or a text, or something, acceptance or protection of us, which, if done right, is fine, but if done wrong, is one of the causes of female depression. Okay. Let me give you 3 examples of dependent environments so you can better understand me, okay? Environment A, where we do not have the power to purchase things that we need on a day-to-day basis without asking someone for funds or permission, okay? That includes things as clothing, gas, food, cosmetics, lunch with girlfriends, etc. Okay. B, an example of a dependent environment is where you are not aware, in control, in communication, or in co-management with the money in your relationship, meaning how the bills are paid, how much money is in the bank, and whose the house's name is in. Okay. And number C, or letter C. An example of a dependent environment is one where we do not have the freedom to make our own schedule without permission. Note, asking for permission is different than clarifying a conflict in scheduling. Okay? Here's a memo from Normal Land. Healthy relationships have something called tentative planning. Again, Healthy relationships have something called tentative planning. Tentative planning is when you have an agreement that before either couple makes final plans, you check with the mate for confirmation and agreement of plans. Tentative planning is an act of respect and partnership, which is a lot different than asking permission to do something. As adults, we don't need to ask permission to live our life. Very good. Write that down. As adults, we do not need permission to live our life. Okay? That's actually a reclaiming me. And the second part to that, of that sentence is, we all have the right to be on our own journey. We all have the right to be on our own journey. The third thing that causes depression in women is the loss of self, or what Dr. Tracy calls, who am I? Syndrome, who am I? How does a woman lose herself? There's so many ways. There's some. Outside of abuse, trauma, or extended trauma. Believe it or not, one of the most common ways a woman loses contact with herself is when she becomes a mother. As wonderful as having children can be as a natural impact, it is easy for a woman to lose contact with her needs during the childbearing and rearing years. To protect yourself, it is important to incorporate little things such as join groups where there are other mothers and mirrors as a woman. Make sure you get an adult conversation every day, adult activity at least 3 times a week, and don't lose touch with your womanly, feminine, beautiful, or sexual side, because the moment you do, so would everyone else. Number 5, and this is an important one. Many children and husbands forget that mom is a person with feelings, needs, desires, and dreams, not to mention an actual first name. So understand it is your responsibility to keep hold of your self-identity. What did I say? It is your responsibility to hold your self-identity, which self-identity is the recognition of one's potential and qualities as an individual. Again, our responsibility is to hold on to our self-identity. Self-identity is the recognition of one's potential and qualities as an individual. Or in other words, Dr. Tracy refers to it as, it is the right to be visible and take up our allotted space without apology. She's always saying that. If you think I'm asking you to be selfish, I am. Healthy selfish is a form of self-care. And the goal of empowerment and becoming the best definition of self is to walk into self-love. Here's a reclaiming me principle. Self-identity is the base in my foundation of self-love, right? So self-identity means recognition of one's potential qualities as an individual. We need to look at that in ourselves. And it's also our base for self-love. So that's how we start loving ourselves. Okay? It's to validate that we are, I'm a loving, I'm giving, whatever your qualities are, your potentials as an individual. Okay? Finally, the fourth one, the environment that causes depression in a woman is needing approval from others. In other words, people who live in joy and who walk in self-love don't reference ourselves outside of ourselves. In other words, we are not looking for self-identity through the feedback of others. Memo from Normal Man. Relationships are like mirrors in that they feed back a reflection of self to ourself. Relationships are like mirrors in that they feed back a reflection of self to ourself. But happiness, as well as an act of self-love, is making the adult choice to only surround ourselves with people whose feedback edifies us, means builds us up for who we are, or for who, where, and what we are. That's very important. I'll read this again. Relationships are like mirrors in that they feed back a reflection to ourself. But happiness, as well as an act of love, is making the adult choice to only surround ourselves with people whose feedback edifies us for who, where, and what we are. So good. We are not obligated to entertain or even listen to their negative feedback. That's so hard, but it's true. We are not obligated to entertain or even listen to their negative feedback. As a child, we cannot control who we intimately expose ourselves to. But as adults, though, we do not need to surround ourselves with people who do not accept us for who we really are. Because, ready? I have the right to also enjoy this journey. That's a RLP. I have the right to also enjoy this journey. Okay, now we're going to go into the healing. Okay, now for the most important question of the day, which is how do we heal and step deeper into self-love? Dr. Tracy shares an analogy where she compares depression to blood sugar disorder, and that if you don't monitor your sugar levels, you will get sick and die. The same is true with depression. In order to live depression-free and in order to live in joy, you must make a lifestyle choices that will keep you healthy. The truth of the matter is that joy is not an emotion, but instead it is a choice. Again, joy is not an emotion, but it is a choice. In other words, it is a conscious series of steps that you make to put yourself in an emotional place that best serves you. In other words, it is a conscious series of steps, which we're going to learn, that you make to put yourself in an emotional place that best serves you. Okay? So, what are those steps or choices to joy? Dr. Tracy has 3 specific ones that she calls the 3 choices to joy. They are the 3 choices we need to make every day in order to be free from situational depression and live in joy. Here they are. Number 1, monitor your environment every day. This is something Dr. Tracy calls environmental management. Environmental management is the skill of monitoring the environment you are exposed to every day. That includes the following: the music you listen to, the colors you wear, the food you eat, how many hours you sleep, what you watch on TV, the type of people you spend with, and most important, includes the things you do to tolerate people or from others. Okay? Those are some examples. To repeat the goal of environment management is to repeat the goal of environment management is to live in joy. Question: what is the definition of joy? Here it comes. Anything that makes us say what, ladies?
I love this.
I love this. I love this. That's the definition of joy. Anything that makes you say, I love this. That's class 11, so that's just some of us who've taken that, know that. To recap from class 1, we only have 2 emotions. What are they, ladies?
Good and bad.
Good and bad. We only have 2. Our good emotions are our feedback from spirit that we are walking in self-love and doing what is right for us. Again, I'll repeat that. Our good emotions are feedbacks from our spirit that we are walking in self-love and doing what is right for us. And our bad emotions are feedback that we have stepped out of self-love and need to get back to our good. And we practice this every single week with our T-tool. It helps us center. So therefore, memo from Normal Land. Here it comes. Living in I love this state is living in joy. Living in a quote-unquote, I love this is living in joy. In other words, the emotion of love and feel good is the address of joy. Again, that's key. The emotion of love and feel good is the address of joy. And keep in mind, all of us here, we can say that we weren't taught this. We were taught that don't, fake it till you make it. Don't listen to your feelings. You're too emotional. Stop it, which is not what we learned. Here we learn why we are emotional, what's going on, find out the issue, look at it, address it, and what's our need, and move on. Because if we can fulfill our need or know that it's just something from our past that we deal with, or it's something that isn't that big of a deal, and we can look at it, call it a name, then we can pray, or however you walk through it, and your life gets back to joy, and that's what she's talking about. Okay? What do? We find ourselves exposed to people or situations that still are joy. You use your second number 2, or choice in living in joy, which is your Reclaiming Me life tool called accountability. Okay, so what do? We find ourselves exposed to people or situations that still are joy. We use the tool called accountability. I'll explain. Your Reclaiming Me tool of the week is called, remember our mantra, this is other accountability. Okay, so here it goes. Why is other accountability an important life empowerment tool? Because the only way to stop people from